we're going through the speech of Yehudah to Yosef. He says, say, Yaakov said, I don't want to give you my son. He's going to take him away from me. Hey, Moshe. Baruch Hashem. And he said, if you take my son away from me, I'll go down to the darkness, and a terrible accident will occur, and then I'll go down into my grave. So, what does it mean, Karoa Son? She says, the Satan mikatreg b'shasa sakana. The accuser prosecutes at a time of peril. We're in chapter 44, verse 29.
45.
Voradatem et sevati. And so now, when Benjamin is next to me, I'm consoled through him for his mother and his brother. And if he'll die, it'll seem to me that the three of them died on one day. So it's a big problem. And now when I come back to your servant, my father, and there he goes, Yehudah calls Jacob to your servant, which we talked about yesterday. And the boy is not with him or with us. His soul is tied to his soul. And when he'll see that the young boy is not there, and he will die, V'oridu avdecha et sevat avdecha avinu biagon sha'olah. And then it will be your servant, meaning me, your servants who have brought down your father into the grave. So he will die, Rashi says, from his grief. He will die of grief.
Rabbi, did you talk yesterday about why he thinks that he's going to Sheol instead of the good place?
We didn't talk about that yesterday, but they only have Sheol. They have no other place in Book of Bereshit.
No, in Bereshit there isn't, but I thought that there's like 7 names for Gehinnom, and so why wouldn't he think that he's going to Gan Eden instead? Like just
there's no mention of dying and going to Gan Eden in the Bible. I mean, do you know of a source for that? I don't know of any. They talk. We have Sheolah.
But it's not clear. I mean, is it clear that Sheolah means Gehenna? I don't think it does.
It just means that you sometimes it says you go down to Sheolah, and it doesn't define what that place is. And sometimes it says Ne'asaf el Achiv, Ne'asaf el Amo. Sometimes it doesn't talk about any like a distinction of what happens when you die. It doesn't talk about what happens when you die. Not at this point in Tanakh for sure. Okay. Anyway, Ki Avdecha Rava Sanar, your servant guaranteed the young boy. Me and Mavili, more from my father, saying, if I don't bring him to you, I will have sinned to my father all the days. Rashi says, V'im Tomar, and if you'll say, why did I get bound up in this controversy more than anybody else? They're all on the outside, but I bound myself up. The Kesher Chazak. So here, this goes to what Rabbi Yosef was saying. He says, I guaranteed myself, I said I'm going to be executed, communicated in this world and in the world to come. But Judah doesn't say that in the text of the Bible. Rashi often refers to the world to come. But the literal text of the Tanakh doesn't, at least in the 5 books of Moshe.
So in Haggadah we say, Hayamim ba'olam hazeh, kol hayamim ba'olam haba. So that's the comparison because it's the same exact language, right? Kol yemei chayecha olam hazeh, kol yemei chayecha olam haba. Right.
Okay, so, I mean that's another kol hayamim. So the word right, Rabbi Yosef is correct. Kol hayamim could imply also the word kol hayamim could have just said v'chatati la'avi. Well, there it didn't need to say, but anyway, Rabbi Yosef is pointing out kol hayamim could the rabbis expound to mean the world to come as well. Says, now let me, your servant, be in place of this boy Benjamin as a servant to my Lord. Let the young boy go up. Rashi says, I'm better than him in everything, Judah says. I'm better than him for strength, for war, and for service. How can I go up to my father? How can I go up to my father? And the boy is not, and the boy is not with me. Lest I see the bad things that will happen to my father. And of course, this is the money line that Joseph has been waiting for. Joseph has been waiting for them to utter these words. How can I go back to my father without my brother with me? How can I go back to him with the young boy not with me? That's the money line he's been waiting for. Yes.
Why do they call Benjamin a Na'ar, a young boy? He's probably he's probably an adult by now.
This is 17 years later.
So it's a good question. It's a good question. Sometimes now refers to somebody younger and sometimes older. But it's a good question why they keep calling him a Na'ar.
Well, maybe that's because his father, how his father views him.
Yeah.
From the youngest, you're always the baby.
Yeah.
My brother Teddy was always the baby. He was 45.
He's 8 years younger than Yosef, so he's 31,
So
right?
Yosef
He was born in
was
Bethlehem after
37.
2 years of the journey from Haran.
Yeah.
So 22 years. So
Okay,
Yosef
so
was born.
He's not 16, but why are they considering him that? I don't know.
Because if he
Why they're
lives to
using the word
120,
Na'ar,
31 is a quarter of his age.
I think it's just to highlight that he was the one who was being spoken of about, and he's not himself speaking up. I mean, why doesn't he speak? So he's like a boy that other people are speaking for him. So Yosef was according to Avimelech. Joseph couldn't hold back. Everybody was standing over him. And Vayikra hotziu kol ish me'alai, and he said, "Get rid of all these men from upon me." V'omad ish ito, hello Kobe. No man stood with him. V'isvada Yosef elchav, when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. So he kicked everybody else out because he was about to do the big reveal. Rashi says he couldn't bear that the Egyptians would be standing before him. V'shomin she'achav misbaishin bivadolahan. Rashi says he couldn't bear that the Egyptians would hear the brothers being embarrassed. We're chapter 45, verse 1 or verse 2.
Sachs famously says that this is the first example of repentance, genuine repentance, not just in the Humat, but in all of Western civilization. He said Judah's act.
Judah's act
is the first genuine act of true tshuva.
Well, we'll get back to that in a moment. But the point is, I was going to say that there's a different way to read this verse, not like Rashi. Rashi says he kicked the Egyptians out so as not to embarrass his brothers, but you could also read it that he kicked the Egyptians out so as not to embarrass himself. He wants to so he wouldn't see he was a pusher, sold off by his brothers. His own brothers hated him. It would be what's it called? It would be negative material to use against him in the political campaign.
I looked at it up differently, that he didn't want the Egyptians to see him weeping.
Well, that's also possible. But now, in terms of whether or not this is the first example of true teshuvah that Rabbi Sachs says, well, I would say two things. One, I'm not sure that this is a direct parallel to call it tshuva, but there are other earlier cases of teshuva in Genesis. There are earlier cases, even with Judah himself, where Judah says that Tamar is more righteous than me. He repented there. So hey Yoav, how you doing, buddy? Good. Chapter 45. And there are other examples, perhaps, of teshuva.
So not to push it, but he writes about this extensively in his Matzah for Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
And he says this is the first example of somebody who actually had the opportunity to do the same thing, but they did a different thing. Right? He had the opportunity to basically sell out his brother.
But here he wasn't selling out his brother. You could say he would be justified here, whereas earlier he wasn't necessarily, hey, Yoni, I want you to come in your uniform one time so everybody could see we have a pilot in our midst. Yoni is a pilot. He flies missions for the United States Air Force. So you should come in your uniform and elevate us, Yoni. So I would say this is not, although Rabbi Sachs is, bless in memory, a incredible scholar. I mean, my point to that would be, this is not the exact same case, because Judah was not, in the case of Joseph, where Joseph was sold, he went out of his way. They took an innocent man, threw him in a pit, and sold him. It's not clear from the text 100% that they sold him, but they certainly threw him in the pit and caused him to be sold. Here, they weren't the ones who kidnapped him. If he had let him go, he would have saved his own life and not rescued another person. And that's justified. It's not a sin to say, it's not a sin if you have an opportunity to save your life and you don't give up your life to save another life. You have not committed a sin. In fact, you might not even be allowed to give up your life to save another person's life. I mean, so I can see why it has the loose framework of repentance, but well, I mean, Dan, let me hear your response.
No, I mean, I'm just channeling what I read from Rabbi Sachs.
No, of course, he
says here's another opportunity where he either saves the brother or he doesn't save the brother, and he does save.
Oh, so in that sense, he could have saved. He saved Joseph before,
From
but
being killed.
he saved him from being killed. But he ended up. But here he did a proper saving.
Right.
So here he did a proper saving. Okay, fair. Here he did a proper saving. There he blundered the opportunity to achieve greatness. He blundered the opportunity to achieve greatness. Yes, Jerry.
Yes, I would like to explore a statement that you just said, that it may be a sin to substitute your own life for somebody else. Let me give you an example. You're walking along the bank of a river, and there's a human being in the river fighting for his life because he can't swim. Does that mean that you, the person on shore, should not try to save this person, even though there's some danger in the dry land man drowning in the rescue procedure?
Okay. So that, Jerry, is an excellent question. There's a specific biblical commandment: do not stand by the blood of your brother. That you're not allowed to watch your friend drown, God forbid, and not get involved. But that's only where you're not going to put your life at risk. Here the case is, you can save your friend from drowning, but only by you yourself drowning. Like, for example, you could give yours one life preserver, you have to give it to your friend, and then you don't have one. So that's what's going on here. Judah could save himself. Judah could save Benjamin by giving up himself. That's what he's offering to do. That you're not required to do, except we spoke about you only being in the Air Force. If you're in a service responsibility, let's basically say that your job is to you signed up to be a police officer, you signed up to be in the armed forces, then your job is to save others. Your job is to save others. So there, you're responsible to run towards the man who presents a threat and to put your life and to risk your life to save another. Like the Secret Service is supposed to take a bullet for the president.
Right.
So, why? Why is the president's life worth more than yours? It's not that the president's life is worth more than yours. It says your job, you signed up to be in the protective forces. You signed up to be in the protective forces. That's what your role, that's what your responsibility in life is leading you to do. And so therefore that's that role. But everybody else is not required. Like it's not my responsibility if I see somebody taking I mean, I don't want to talk about me. If Reuven sees somebody taking a shot towards the president, Reuven, a common citizen, is not required to jump in front of that bullet. But a Secret Service person, if he ducks and the bullet hits the president, I think that he's going to face like a court-martial or something. Like, why did you avoid your responsibility?
Someone who did that when Trump got shot at.
Somebody did that?
The Secret Service lady, she like ducked down.
And what happened to her?
And she got laid off.
No, it's her job. I don't know about that, but it's her job to step up at that moment, not to go hiding. Like she's not a common citizen there. She signed up for something. She signed up for service. You had a question, Moshe? Okay. So anyway, so now we come to the point. What's the matter? Vayitain as
I just
kol.
wanted to add something, sorry.
Yeah.
Rav Mordechai Chaliva, Zichron Revacha, told us when we were in high school that at the very end of Yosef's life, they say to him, Anasana Pesha Achecha B'chatatam, and it says again, Sana Lefesha Avdei Elohei Avicha. He said the acronym for Elohei Avicha is Ilo Haviyom Akama Yosef Ika Beshuka, which is something that Rav Yosef said. And so the idea is basically that that was part of Judah's interpretation. And so I think that what he means is that really Judah did not do actual tshuva. He said, you're the one who told us that it was Hashem's plan, so we don't really owe you an apology. I don't know. It's a stretch, but I think that was their argument, basically.
Well, Baruch Shkoyach, we're going to get to that now. We're going to get to that now. Exactly what we're about. Yitenas kol b'fli, and he lifted up his voice in crying. Vayishmu Mitzrayim, the Egyptians heard this. Vayishma Beit Paro, the house of Pharaoh heard this. What does it mean, the house of Pharaoh? Rashi says Avadav Bnei Boiso. Doesn't mean the actual house. It means his servants, like the people who were in the household. In Old French, this is the mais need. In Old French, a house is a maison, I think. So maison, what?
French maison is French for house.
Yeah.
Nice.
How did I know that? I don't know. I took.
Because you're a genius.
No, I know. I took 6 months of French, but if you take 6 months of French, you could basically read an entire books and like 1,000 pages in French at a time, because French is basically English with Latin, and it's very simple. To learn how to read it is very simple. To learn how to speak it, because to learn how to speak it is very hard because they pronounce everything wrong. But and you forget about understanding it, but to read it is extremely easy. Like it's not hard to learn how to read it. So,
She uses the word maison.
yeah, you know French.
I mean, I know what maison means.
Yeah,
You
there.
said that Rashi used that word.
Yeah, in modern French, maison means household and family. So that's what it is. Okay, but before we go upstairs, I want to just say a couple of things to everybody. So I want to go